Happy Valentine's Day, dear listeners. Today we are celebrating love, but with a twist. Forget the chocolates, the roses, and the sappy love songs. Okay, maybe I will add in the love songs. But we are diving into the kind of love that's secretive, daring, and maybe just a little scandalous. Thank you for listening to Death Kiss Traveler, the only podcast that dives into the dark history, horror, and hauntings at amusement parks. My name is Marissa, your morbidly curious host. And if you want more Death Kiss Traveler, follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Death Kiss Traveler Podcast. I post pictures of this episode and others and stories throughout the week that you don't want to miss. This episode is produced and sponsored by Sunkiss Traveler, the travel agency that's helping you plan sun-soaked adventures, unforgettable trips, and travel experiences that actually feel like a vacation. Go chase the sunshine with Sunkiss Traveler. See show notes for details. Okay, now no more business or small talk. Just you, me, and a love story that refuses to stay buried. Now let's get into it. Picture this. It's a warm summer evening at a bustling mid-century amusement park. The air smells of popcorn and cotton candy. Big band music drifts across the midway. Laughter echoes from the Ferris wheel. And there, tucked away from prying eyes, is the Tunnel of Love. A gentle boat ride through shadowed corridors, painted forests, and lantern light that flickers like candle flames on water. For generations, the Tunnel of Love was more than just a ride. It was a private little world where young couples could sneak their first kisses, steal touches that made their hearts pound, and whisper secrets they'd never share in daylight. It was a place where innocence flirted with desire. Curiosity dared to break the rules, and every glance and brush of hand was electric. It was romantic, mischievous, and for some, downright scandalous. The perfect place for a Valentine's adventure that parents would have definitely disapproved of. In the early decades of the 20th century, amusement parks were not just about thrills. They were about escape. A place where families, couples, and children could step out of the ordinary world and into something magical. The Tunnel of Love actually originates from the old mill rides in the late 1800s. Slow, winding boat canals that meandered through dimly lit tunnels. At first, they were a little more than scenic excursions. Painted backdrops of forests and waterfalls, soft splashes of water against wooden holes, and the faint scent of oil lamps lingering in the air. But by the 1920s and 30s, these rides had gained a new reputation. The darkness, the gentle sway of the boat, and the long enclosed passages created a world apart. A world where young couples could steal a moment together, away from the watchful eyes of chaperones and parents. Inside the tunnel, the outside world disappeared. Lanterns flickered along the walls, casting shadows over painted scenes of fairy tale forests and moonlit bridges. Water lapped quietly against the sides of the boat. Couples whispered and held hands, sometimes hearts pounding in the thrill of secrecy. To ride the Tunnel of Love was to step into a private universe, a fleeting moment suspended in time. But the very features that made it enchanting also carried hidden danger. These tunnels were often narrow, wooden, and poorly ventilated. Decorations made of flammable materials lined the walls, and the darkness that gave the ride its romance could quickly turn to panic if something went wrong. By the 1940s, the Tunnel of Love had become a fixture at hundreds of amusement parks across the United States. Let's call it a rite of passage, a symbol of courtship, and for many, a cherished memory. What had begun as a slow boat ride gliding through painted forests and twinkling lanterns became a private den of temptation after dark. Within those narrow, shadowed corridors, hands roamed, bodies pressed, and whispered moans mingled with the gentle splash of water, far removed from the sounds of the amusement park. For generations of teenagers and young lovers, the Tunnel of Love was a secret universe, carved out of darkness and flickering lantern light. Girls leaned into boys with trembling excitement, lips brushing in stolen kisses, hearts racing as hands explored shoulders, backs, and places not meant to be touched in daylight. Some couples held back shyly, teasing and whispering. Others surrendered to the thrill, daring each other to break the rules with each passing shadow. Rumors ran rampant. Couples would deliberately slow their boats, lingering in alcoves and corners. Some people snuck in after hours, the thrill of being unseen, amplifying every touch, every whispered word. This next part of the story makes me giggle, because newspapers would occasionally report scandalous stories of indecent conduct in the tunnels. Those poor teens, can you imagine if the story was written about you? Yet those whispers only made the ride more infamous, more irresistible. There are postcards and photographs from the era that hinted at the excitement. Girls blushing, boys grinning mischievously, hands intertwined in ways society might never allow. The Tunnel of Love had become more than a ride. It was a playground for curiosity and forbidden intimacy, a place where innocence danced dangerously close to desire. In that darkness, ordinary rules of society faded. Whispers became moans. Laughter became gasps, and every heartbeat echoed off the wooden walls and rippling water. The thrill of secrecy, the excitement of testing boundaries, the intoxicating brush of skin in shadowed corners. It was all part of the ride's dark allure. And just to give you a laugh or the total ick, these lovesick, scandalous teenagers were your grandparents or great-grandparents, those dirty birds. Now, I wish we could talk about the dirty side of amusement for the whole episode. But this is Death Kiss Traveler, and this boat ride does have a dark side. Long before roller coasters and thrill rides dominated the amusement park scene, there was a place in Denver, Colorado that captured the hearts of families, nature lovers, and entertainment seekers alike. Elitch Gardens. Opening its gates on May 1st, 1890, Elitch Gardens wasn't originally a theme park as we think of it today. It was a lush green oasis, a zoological garden, and a cultural hub. Created by John and Mary Elitch, visitors would stroll past exotic animals, enjoy musical performances, and marvel at the vibrant flowers and gardens that made the park a true retreat from the city life. Tragedy struck early for the Elitch family when John passed away in 1891. But Mary stepped up, taking the reins as the park manager. She became one of the first women in the world to own and operate an amusement park. That truly is a remarkable achievement in an era where business was almost exclusively male. Under her guidance, the park expanded its cultural offerings. The Elitch Theater became a renowned summer stock stage, showcasing circus acts, operas, and even early motion pictures. By the 1910s, the park added a ballroom, hosting orchestras and dance events that became a central part of Denver's social life. As the decades rolled on, Elitch Gardens began to embrace rides and thrills. Wooden roller coasters, Ferris wheels, and the classic carousel arrived, alongside smaller attractions like bumper cars and a boat canal ride known as the Old Mill, or for couples seeking a bit of privacy, the Tunnel of Love. These rides transformed the park into a full-fledged amusement destination, drawing families from across Colorado for generations of summer fun. But we should note that by the 1990s, the park's original Northwest Denver location could no longer expand. And after more than a century, Elitch Gardens closed its historic grounds in 1994, relocating near downtown Denver along the Plate River. In 1995, it reopened as a larger, modern urban amusement park, carrying forward the legacy of entertainment, culture, and family memories, all built on a foundation that began in a simple garden over 100 years earlier. I went there as a kid, and I can't remember how old I was, but it would have been the new version of Elitch Gardens, and I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. For over a century, Elitch Gardens has been more than rides and attractions. It has been a reflection of American leisure, of community and joy, the perfect backdrop for the stories that would unfold within its tunnels and waterways, including moments of heartbreak and tragedy. Because in the summer of 1944, Elitch Gardens had become more than a park. It was a place of memory and escape. Big bands filled the night air, and in the sweltering Denver heat, families and couples alike drifted between rides and gardens, seeking relief from wartime worry. One of the park's most beloved attraction was the Old Mill, a tunnel of love-style boat ride that wound its way through long, dimly lit canals beneath painted scenes of fairy tale characters. And yes, those couples cozied close as lanterns reflected on the water. Children giggled at the glowing figures on the banks, and the gentle clack of paddles punctured the soft splash of water. It was a ride built for leisure, for romance, for innocent adventure. But on July 16, 1944, that gentle passage became a chamber of horror. It began, no one knows exactly how, with smoke flickering in the distance, inside the ride's long tunnel. Some witnesses later said they smelled something odd. Others noticed a flicker of flame against a painted canvas backdrop. Whatever the spark, it found fuel in a place meant for joy. And in a moment, it became something else entirely. Inside the canal's narrow corridors, smoke quickly thickened into a suffocating fog. The oil-painted canvas scenes, meant to enchant, gave off toxic fumes as they burned. Boat after boat that had entered the tunnel found itself trapped in creeping darkness. At first, riders coughed and ducked, thinking it was part of the ride's theatrics. Then they realized it wasn't a joke at all. They were headed into flame. Rescue efforts were frantic. Fire engines were delayed, held back by a locked gate that kept emergency crews from reaching the blaze quickly. Park workers and patrons alike rushed into the inferno, not knowing they were walking into one of the deadliest moments in the park's long history. 2 attendants braved the choking smoke, attempting to reach those trapped inside, and both would later be found face down in the knee-deep water. Overcome by the fumes, they sought to fight. Among those who perished were soldiers home on leave from war, young couples just enjoying a summer night, in futures no one could yet imagine. Their names etched in the coroner's report that followed the tragedy: Miss Mary McClavin and Private Robert McClavin, newlyweds, and Miss Maxine Jacobberger and Private R.L. Jacobberger, also a young couple that day. And then there was 14-year-old George Keithline, a boy who had wanted to be a soldier so badly he lied about his age to get a job at the Old Mill ride. When the alarm sounded, he was the first to rush towards the chaos, clutching a fire extinguisher and determined to help. In the end, that act of bravery cost him his life. The fire extinguisher was still in his hands when the flames claimed him. Outside the ride, other patrons described scenes that could have been torn from a nightmare. Tech Sergeant George Trader of Camp Carson later told reporters how he and 2 others escaped by feeling their way along the ledge beside the canal, helping other panicked couples find their way through thick smoke as the fire raged behind them. Only then, after squeezing into a small alcove and finding a sliver of sunlight through a hole in the wall, did they break free from the choking tunnel. Minutes later, flame poured out behind them like a roar. When the fire was finally under control, the toll became clear. 6 people were dead, 4 park visitors, and 2 park workers. It was a moment that shocked Denver and the nation, remembered not just for the deaths themselves, but for the heartbreak behind each of their names and the cruel irony of how quickly a place of leisure turned into a chamber of smoke and sorrow. In the days that followed, the tragedy sparked calls for changes in safety regulations for amusement parks and debates about maintenance, preparedness, and the unchecked hazards that could hide from the most familiar places. But for those who knew the victims, the loss was personal, a cruel reminder that danger can lurk even where you least expect it, and that joy and tragedy often walk a fine line. And not all water ride tragedies come with flames or wreckage you can see from across the park. Sometimes the danger is quieter, hidden in plain sight, waiting in the kind of small gap you never notice until it matters. The kind of mistake you don't believe could happen, right up until the moment it does. One of the most haunting examples of that comes from Rye Playland in New York. On a ride called Ye Old Mill, a classic boat-in-the-dark attraction, it's supposed to be harmless. On August 3, 2005, 7-year-old John Kelly Cassara from Norwalk rode with his family on what should have been a gentle trip through shadowed tunnels and quiet lantern-lit water. And then, in an instant that no one could take back, the ride became something else entirely. Walking along the platform of the ride, he slipped into a 14-inch gap between the wooden planks. Why or how it was there, I don't know. But the reports described it as a narrow gap near the ride's conveyor or transfer area. And in that dim, mechanical underworld where guests aren't meant to be, he slipped through and ended up beneath the moving system. Some accounts do suggest that he got out of the boat first and into the water channel and then drifted into that moving dead zone near the conveyor section. I don't think that's true. Most reports show that he slipped into that 14-inch crack. Either way, the darkest part is how quietly it could happen. The ride's still moving, the tunnel still swallowing sound, and danger sitting just below the surface, out of sight, until it was far too late. He was found in only 2.5 feet of water. Later investigations pointed to lapses in supervision. 2 of 4 ride attendants were reportedly absent and safety procedures weren't fully followed. But the most terrifying part of this story is how simple it is. A child, a gap, a dark ride built for calm, turning dangerous without warning. Afterward, authorities ordered the floor gap sealed to prevent it from happening again. The park tightened monitoring and safety protocols. The family eventually reached a settlement, and a scholarship was created in John Kelly's name. An attempt to carve something lasting and meaningful out of something that should have never happened. And that's the chilling truth that lingers after you hear a story like this. The rides designed for innocence can still hide risks you'll never see from the queue. So we talked about some of the horrors in the Tunnel of Love. But now it's time to leave you with a haunting love story. In the 1960s, 2 teenagers climbed into a chipped fiberglass boat at the entrance of the park's little Tunnel of Love. The water was as dark as soda under dock lights, and the tunnel ahead looked like a mouth that had been waiting all day to swallow something. The operator didn't smile. He leaned over the console and said, slow and flat, like he repeated it way too many times, "Keep your hands and arms inside the boat and stay seated." The boy and girl grinned anyway, young enough to think every warning was part of the show. They nodded, squeezed into the small wooden bench, and as the boat lurched forward, they giggled, scooted closer. Fingers laced, knees touching, The kind of closeness that makes the whole world feel harmless. The boat drifted toward the tunnel, and the tunnel took it. The moment they crossed the threshold, the midway fell away behind them. Music, laughter, the clack of games fading like a radio, slowly turning its own volume down. The air inside was colder, but also strangely stuffy, heavy with damp wood and old water. A musty smell clung to the walls, like the tunnel had been breathing the same breath for years. At first, it was exactly what was promised. Painted scenes soft in romantic colors, fake stars scattered across the ceiling that disappeared into dark. Plastic flowers glowing faintly where tired bulbs still worked. A chorus of recorded crickets chirping sweetly, like the ride was trying too hard to convince you it was summer forever. The girl rested her head on his shoulder. "Make a wish," she whispered. He opened his mouth to joke, but the boat slid past a curtain of dangling vines, and the whole ride shifted. Without a change of speed, not a jump scare, not a loud noise, just a feeling, like you've stepped into a room mid-argument. The crickets stopped. The music wobbled, warping for a second like a cassette tape being chewed. And then the lights began to flicker. 1 bulb, 2, 3, a weak glow, and then darkness. Then glow again, like the tunnel couldn't decide whether it wanted to be seen. Then the boat went through a long patch of darkness, where the ride designers must have thought suspense would be fun. The boat kept moving, slower now, barely nudging forward. The water made a soft, syrupy sound against the sides. Somewhere deeper in the tunnel, machinery clinked faintly, steady, patient, indifferent. Clack, clack. The boy squeezed her hand, probably just a power thing, he said. But his voice didn't sound like he believed it. Silence dropped like a curtain. And then, like nothing had happened, the boat slid out of the tunnel and bumped gently against the loading dock. The operator stepped forward, already reaching for the rope, and froze. The bench was wet. The safety bar was still down. The boat rocked once, twice, as if it had just carried someone through. But the teenagers were gone. No scream carried out of the tunnel, no splash, no frantic pounding on fiberglass, just an empty boat returning on schedule, as if the ride had completed its loop and swallowed the occupants. No boy, no girl, no nervous laughter, no breath, just the sound of water dripping from the bow in slow, deliberate drops. The operator called security. He thought they probably jumped off the ride to make out in the dark corridors. But he had a feeling that something wasn't quite right. Flashlights, shouts, boots on damp boards. They called the teens' names again and again. The tunnel gave nothing back. Hours later, they found them. Floating, not caught on a prop, not tangled where you could point and say that's the reason, just drifting in the water. It was quiet and final. And that's where this story turns twisted, because the boat came back first. The ride completed its loop. The mechanism did its job. The tunnel of love returned the boat like a polite apology and kept the people like a secret. The park shut it down. Investigators tore through the place. They checked motors, belts, gates, measured depth. They mapped the channel. They interviewed the operator until his voice turned thin. But every explanation died on contact with the same fact. 2 teens went in. The boat came out empty. No one could explain how they vanished without a sound. No one could explain why the boat returned so calmly, like it hadn't dragged them through darkness at all. The reports gave careful language and tidy phrases, but none of it fit. The ride stayed closed, then reopened, then closed again. Because some things don't stay buried once people start listening for them. And people did listen. They started noticing how the tunnel felt different on warm nights, how the air turned suddenly cold in one spot, cold like a hand placed flat against your spine. They started whispering about the way the boat sometimes slowed where it wasn't supposed to, lingering like it's waiting for something to catch up. And then came the sightings. A shadow under the boat that shouldn't be there. A second ripple moving alongside you, even when the water is still. And that uneasy feeling of always being watched. And before we go any farther, you should know there's no official file you can pull that explains it cleanly. No final report with a neat ending. No single confirmed this is exactly what happened that everyone agrees on. Because this story, the empty boat, the missing couple, the bodies in the water, the cold spots and the shadows in the hole, is an urban legend. But here's what makes it linger. This isn't a story that belongs to one park. It doesn't stay pinned to one map. It travels. It changes name, years, and details like it's putting on a new mask. And somehow it always fits. Ask around any old tunnel of love and a creaky boat in the dark ride, and you'll hear a version of it. Different teenagers, different night, different operator warning to keep your hands inside, but it's always the same ending. The boat comes back, and somebody doesn't. It's this urban legend that actually got me interested in doing a whole report on the Tunnel of Love. So that wraps up our scandalous little Tunnel of Love tale, an attraction built for giggles, hand-holding and stolen kisses, and somehow collected a few whispers along the way. Whether you believe the legend or not, I hope it gave you a fun little shiver and remind you that love stories are better when everyone makes it back to the dock. So tonight, hold your person close, be extra sweet, and if you ever find yourself on a Tunnel of Love ride, keep your hands inside, stay seated, and save the dramatic stuff for later. Happy Valentine's Day, my spooky friends. May your night be full of chocolate, cozy vibes, and only the cute kind of butterflies. I'll see you next week.